again, the sling looks nice coming into Catalina. Okay, 10 pilot tips. In addition to those are the how-tos or whatever. So here's my 10 best tips for going to Catalina. Always use flight following. Dave Prizio, who many of you may know, he's an EAA pilot who ditched his Cub in the Catalina Channel 3 years ago. His engine quit mysteriously, and he had to ditch. He was only 2,000 feet above the ocean. So when you're 2,000 feet above the ocean and your engine quits, you know, the adrenaline starts flowing. You don't have a lot of time to start looking for 121.5 and hoping somebody's listening or thinking about, let me see, do I call Torrance Tower? Are they going to hear me? What are they going to do? Get flight following. He was on flight following, and all he did is he hit ident on his transponder, and he said, whatever his number was, 22 Charlie, we have an engine failure, we're ditching in the ocean. Because he hit ident, the controller already knew where he was. He ditched, he had been watching boats, and he ditched near a boat. They picked him up after about 7 minutes in the water, and he lost the airplane, it sunk, but they were fine. So he credits using, I went and listened to his talk about it, and he credits using flight following for basically saving his life, because he didn't have to look for a frequency. He just got on the horn and just said, you know, 22 Charlie, Mayday, we're going in, we lost an engine, we're going into the water. And they had rescue crews there within 15 minutes. Carry a PLB, personal locator beacon, and wear flotation vests. We have them, they're sitting right there, there's black ones. I see people go to Catalina all the time, they don't wear them. That's fine, you're playing your odds. This is like buying insurance, you know. Should you buy insurance? Well, you're playing the odds. If you have a flotation vest gives you about 30 pounds of buoyancy. And here's the problem with Catalina. Okay, the average temperature, any of you guys know what the average ocean temperature here is in California? During the year average.
50.
What's that?
50.
You're close. 50 was the close one. Somebody said something else? So it's 55. Okay, have you ever gone into 55-degree water? Your muscles are going to start to cramp within minutes. And you may think, oh, I'm going to tread water out in the ocean for 30 minutes while they get rescue crews. You won't. And so what's going to happen is you're going to start to give up because your muscles get cramped. And you just, you give up. You can't move them anymore. So flotation vests give you that buoyancy so you can stop treading water and you still stay afloat. So carry them and wear them. Because I'll tell you, 2,000 feet when you're going down is a heck of a time to start putting on a vest and go, well, I think the strap's over here. So put them on before you go. And then a PLB is a personal locator beacon. They're like $300 now, $250. It's a little device that you just push a button and it sends out a distress call through satellite and they'll pick you up within 3 feet. So before you even touch the water, you've already sent a distress signal. Pick a VFR cruising altitude as high as you can with comfort in mind. There's no reason to go over at 14,500 and then make the dive while your passengers are going, this is not fun. So be reasonable, but don't go. I have a friend who likes going over at 500 feet over the water, and so far he's had a lot of luck. But I don't know if I want to take my chances like that. He'll have no time. Look for boats en route and kind of meander towards the boats, or at least be able to get there. Right?
What altitude do you normally go over at?
I usually go over at 45 and 35, or 45 and 55 even better.
Because around 55, you're sometimes in the pattern of the LAX traffic.
And a lot of times SoCal doesn't want you there.
Yeah.
But so I mean the lowest I'll go is 35. I won't go below that because there's just no time. The Sling has a glide ratio of what? 10 to 1. 10 to 1. So if you're at 3,500 feet, that means it'll go forward 35,000 feet. 35,000 feet forward is about 6 miles, roughly. And I figure 5 miles, and probably on a given day, probably 4 miles. So you've got a little bit of time, 500 feet per minute descent, but not a lot. You've got maybe 4 or 5 minutes before you hit the water. So look for boats. Review the ditching procedures before you go. When your engine quits is not the time to go, okay, let me see, do I ditch into the swells, or against them, or with them? Look at the ditching procedures before you go, so at least you have an idea. The Sling is a great airplane because the Sling has a low wing, and it has they're well sealed, the wings are, and they're very, obviously you've seen that they're high lift, they have a big camber on them, so they'll float for a little bit before they start filling with water, but they'll give you enough time to get out. The whole trick then in ditching the Sling is to get the tail down as far as you can. You can't do no offense, I call it the Cirrus driver landing, where they land completely flat. You've got to get that tail down. You've got to get the nose up, like tail wheel people do, Get the nose up and land with as little energy as possible. Remember, you're dissipating inertia, you're dissipating energy. So if you're going to ditch, that's a heck of a time to learn, but you really got to work on bringing your nose up. You can't ditch flat, because what will happen is the gear on the sling will grab the water first, and it's such a light airplane, it'll go over on its back. So now you're upside down with the sliding canopy in.
If your sling happens to have a parachute, would you pull it, or would you do the?
You know, that's a great question, because mine doesn't have a chute. So that's a good question. Matt, do you have an answer to that?
I know people have debate about it, but I would definitely pull mine.
Yeah. I think so. The statistics is that in a ditching accident, the NTSB says you have a 60% chance of survival. So that's not great odds.
No.
So I would probably, if I had to shoot, I'd pull that, because your odds are much better with that. Ditching is a fine art. It's not just it's just like a runway. It really is, and it can go bad real easy.
Mark, what about the canopy? Latching before touchdown, before ditching?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we do when we're talking about ditching. Is you unlatch the canopy first. I like that better than the Cessna door, because the door in the Cessna, before you ditch, you're supposed to open the doors. Man, those things fill up with water fast. There's videos on YouTube, and it takes no time, But you got to open the door, because if you don't, now you've got all that pressure pushing the doors in. Right? I love the slings sliding canopy as long as you're not upside down on the ground.
It's just a related subject too, just in terms of the canopy. What does anybody have an understanding of the airplane, how the airplane behaves with the canopy open in flight?
Below 80 knots is approved about 1 foot, and we do it quite often. So if you start out at 80 knots, you can pull it back. If you let it go, it'll close by itself. But below 80 knots, there's very little risk of it getting lower.
I'm going to admit to you that I forgot one time taking off, forgot to latch the canopy, and I thought that there was a lot of noise in my headset, and it turned out that it was open, and we were climbing at like 80, and it was fine. It stayed closed. So, and then I leveled off and went to cruise, and it was then that I looked at it. So it was okay. It didn't do anything crazy.
And you were able to close it in the cruise?
Oh yeah.
It sucks in.
Yeah, it sucks in. It actually helps you. It sucks in. The low pressure flowing over the canopy pulls it forward. Yeah. Yeah, it sucks it right back. I mean, I don't recommend you go out and do it, but I mean, it's nothing detrimental that I've seen. Bring your own chocks and tie-down ropes. There's no chocks on the island, so if it's a busy Saturday, you just have to leave your airplane there with no chocks or tie-downs, and if it's windy, it starts to get breezy in the afternoon, it can, get out of whack. So bring your own chocks and tie-down ropes, and purchase the Wildlands Express bus ticket to Avalon online before you go. It's cheaper, and you don't have to wait in line. And that way you're guaranteed. What's that?
Is it cheaper even if you have Aero Club?
Yes, it's cheaper. Even if you have Aero Club, it's cheaper online than if you go to the counter. So buy it ahead of time. Join the Aero Club. So the Aero Club is $150. You get unlimited landings on Catalina. If you don't have the Aero Club, it's $25 every time you land. So if you go 6 times, you're covered. And it gives you discounts on the Wildlands Express and on camping, which I'm going to get to in 1 second. For $3, you can get a very cool parchment certificate for transoceanic navigation. Most people don't know that. If you land on Catalina, go up to the office and ask Justin for a certificate, and he will sell you for $3 a certificate that says, I have successfully navigated transoceanically across the Pacific Ocean to Catalina Island. It's kind of cool. It's cool. So like you can put it up, and people don't know that you paid $3 for it. They're like, "Wow, you've done that." Well, transoceanic navigation. Oh yeah. No big deal. Do it all the time, 400 times. So I think the only person in here could really qualify for this would be Jean there, who's actually gone around the world transoceanic. But anyway, you can get a certificate if you go, and a lot of people don't know that. And if it's windy, stay home. That's my best tip. If it's windy, stay home. It's not really worth it. Or go with the CFI. Best kept secret, the travel tip. Okay, so I actually debated telling you guys about this. I actually debated. Okay, so I'm doing a story about Catalina for Flying Magazine. And one of the things that Catalina did is they had me come out there and they drove me around and showed me all these really cool places. And this is the best one. Now, yeah, so if you go to Catalina.
Don't tell us.
I know, I won't tell you. I guess I didn't want to tell people because I didn't want everybody to ruin it. But you guys are a small group, so it's okay. You won't go the same day I do. So on Catalina, there as a pilot, when you're at the airport, you can take the Wildlands Express to Avalon, which is cool, and go stay there at the bed and breakfast, and there's restaurants, and it's kind of a typical touristy kind of thing. Or you can do this. There's a place called Little Harbor, which is on the other side of the island. Now, this picture is not great. This was taken with an iPhone, and it was just done in a hurry in the middle of the day. But this is a really cool, protected bay with some very, very clear water. It's on the other side of the island, and it has next to it, Hollywood in 1922 filmed a movie here, and they needed a set that was tropical looking. Well, the island is kind of not very tropical. So they brought in all this foliage and palms and all these tropical things, and they planted it all, and it turned out it all grew. So now it's all mature. So it's created this beautiful oasis. And there's a private campground here that if you're an Aero Club member, a pilot, you get it for half price. The only people that know about this are people who live on the island. So you can take a shuttle from the airport to Little Harbor, and they'll drop you off there. You have to reserve the campground through the Catalina Conservancy ahead of time. I think for you guys in the Aero Club, it's $20 a night, which is unbelievable. And there are these little, primitive but beautiful campgrounds there. There's no general store. There's no gas station. There's no anything. It's you bring everything yourself. But they will also, for $11, bring you a bundle of firewood in the shuttle with you. So basically, you guys could take a Sling or whatever airplane, put a cooler in there with some food and some drinks, a couple of sleeping bags and a tent, and then get the firewood at the airport. They'll drop it off to you at the campground and spend an amazing few days in this little campground. Now, there's a couple photos here. So all this is fake. They planted all this. Hollywood planted all this. There's picnic tables. There's parking, which is kind of funny because I've never seen any cars there other than ours that day. But there's nobody there. So you're right there in this little bay in a tropical kind of setting, listening to the ocean lap up on the beach in a silent campground away from the whole world. So it's pretty cool for like $21 a day. This is the bay right here. It's got, like I said, picnic tables and then individual campsites. And the individual campsites there's nothing fancy. I mean, there's like a spigot with water and there's some outdoor showers. But it's basically untouched. Not a lot of people know about it, so it's kind of there. Here's a couple of pictures, I think, here. Oh, half price for Aero Club members. $11 shuttle from the airport. You just have to make reservations ahead of time through the Conservancy. Call ahead and buy 2 bundles of wood for your fire at night. You don't have to carry it yourself. Private secluded campgrounds on a deserted beach. There's never anybody there. Tropical surroundings and primitive and quiet showers and running water. And,
is the water drinkable?
Yes, it is. It's potable. Reserve ahead of time, just so that you're assured. And then fly in, bring 10 sleeping bags and a cooler with food, and you've got yourself an amazing weekend. I've done it before, and it's really, really nice. It's just really, really quiet, very different from anything we have here in Southern California. I've seen only a couple people on the beach. This is the bay right here. If you're into snorkeling, there's some amazing snorkeling right here all around. This is all very clear water. It's cold, but it's clear. It's called Little Harbor. So what you do is you call the Conservancy. You can also talk to Justin at the airport. Say, hey, I want to get the shuttle to Little Harbor. He'll tell you when to do it. It comes twice a day, and it takes you to the campground and then back from the campground. So twice a day. I think it's at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. You can catch either one of those.
Would that make a good day trip?
Very, very cool day trip, yeah.
How long is the shuttle on?
I'm sorry?
How long does the shuttle take?
The shuttle takes about 25 minutes.
Have you been lately?
I was there about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, because we were there in the late fall last year, and there was asbestos on one of the roads, so they had to go all the way around the
Oh my
whole
gosh,
island
really?
to get there, and it took like an hour.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't. I mean,
But if you went a couple weeks
well,
ago,
but I went with the guy who's, the Conservancy guy, so I don't know if the shuttle maybe. I would call and find out.
yeah, it was there, and it sounded like it was going to be an issue for a while.
Really?
Naturally occurring asbestos.
They just reopened the road.
Naturally occurring asbestos. Okay. And you guys know also that as pilots you can camp at the end of the runway. There's a little campground there. It's pretty ugly. It's just kind of dirt. I guess it's a place to drink some beer next to your airplane. Tell people you went camping and watch airplanes take off. So all the pilot guide stuff, all the hints and all that are on a free downloadable thing that I put on my website at ocsling.com. If you go to the very bottom of that website, there's a video, there's a 25-minute video about all this, and has some footage of the runway and all that kind of stuff. And there's a pilot guide that I put together that you can download for free. So just go to ocsling.com, and it's at the bottom of the page. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
When we approach from Torrance and go from Torrance to the first two harbors, it's a straight shot. But when you come up from Orange County and you're starting farther south, what's your approach to Twin Harbors?
I come around the front. So I will actually, when I leave the shore, instead of pointing my airplane towards the airport, I'll point it further north, up towards Twin Harbors. If it's really crazy, I'll go around the back. I don't know if you saw that on the slide. What's that?
By crazy, you mean really busy?
Yes, sometimes it gets really busy, and like you were saying, that sometimes SoCal doesn't want you at certain altitudes because they have a lot of airplanes coming into Long Beach. They're doing the ILS and the 30. And so I'll go around the back of the island. So I'll point my airplane towards Avalon, which, as you know, is on the southern part of the island, and then go around the back and come into the airport around the back. And not even go all the way to Harbor, just come around the back. Yeah. Matt?
Okay, learned a lot about Catalina, thank you. When I come to Catalina when there's little or no wind, I normally, because it improved landing and takeoff distance, I normally land uphill and take off downhill every time when there's very little wind.
Yes, that's a great point.
You do that.
Yes, that's a great point. Because that uphill runway, a lot of people will do that on a calm day when there's not a bunch of tailwind. They'll take off downhill to take advantage of the extra speed and the slower landing or shorter landing distance and land the opposite way. Yes, and they're perfectly okay with that. They don't mind that at all. The big things that he says, he being the airport manager, Justin, he said the biggest thing that he sees is that he wishes he could change are straight in approaches, pilots not reporting their position accurately, and people doing weird patterns. Coming in overhead the opposite way, and then spiraling down and entering on the 45. And he says he's seen everything there is. And he says that some people fly a 10-mile downwind. He goes, I don't want you flying a 10-mile downwind because it's essentially a straight in. So just fly a normal pattern. And they don't mind the uphill down. Yeah.
CTAP is the same as Rome.
The frequency? Yeah, so you'll hear it for
So if you sometimes, I was there when last time we were actually, I could hear it so clearly.
Yeah, you can hear it
If
clearly.
you don't pay attention on this.
Yeah, it is. That's a good point. Sometimes you'll be like, what? Yeah. Over the cheese plant. Over the cheese plant. Yeah, John?
Just two things. If you're sitting on the threshold of each runway, you probably won't, and I'm asking you the question, be able to receive VHF call from the other plane. You wouldn't, with a curvature, you wouldn't be able to. So if two people ended up on the threshold ready to go, did their radio calls at the same time?
I have never not heard them. I have heard them. Even sitting right at the. Have any of you experienced not hearing anybody? No, I've always heard them.
I've heard them.
You have?
I've heard them.
Yeah, I've heard them too. Yes.
So the curve isn't that bad.
The curve is not that bad enough to block the radio communication. That's a good point. Because VHF is line of sight.
But the curve's bad enough to block.
You block the view. Yeah, you can't see them. That's the problem.
Which is line of sight, which is why I asked. Yeah.
Right.
And just the other question about doing a run-up with a bad surface. If you do a run-up there, I don't know what really, I mean, I normally, when I'm there, I do the run-up while I'm taxiing, so we don't pick up stones on the props.
Right. Okay, so what they want you to do is, right before you go onto runway 22 or 4, well, 22 is the normal runway, there's a little area there, just enough to turn a sling around and pull short of the runway and point perpendicular to the runway. That's where people will do their run-up, or they'll do it like you do on the
And is that a good surface? It doesn't pick up stones?
It's actually terrible. That whole taxiway is awful. If you've ever walked it, it's full of loose gravel.
Yeah.
It's really, there are people who won't fly their airplane there just because of the gravel and they have low prop clearance, like Meridians and Malibus and stuff, and they just won't because of the possibility of mix. So the question I guess is where is the best place to do a run-up? I haven't found a great place to do a run-up on 2.
That's why I do it on the
on the taxiway, because at least you're moving. Because if you sit at the end of the runway, there's gravel and dirt all over.
I've seen when planes have been to Catalina and they come back straight away, the props damaged.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, sometimes you guys know you can park on the grass here on the, I guess, the east side, or the dirt.
I try to park on the asphalt as much as I can, but yeah, that's a good point. Pull it out, and again, bring your own chocks because otherwise it'll roll. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you have any comments on sightseeing on the rest of the island, like going back to that side and circling Avalon? Is that I know it's probably common.
Yeah, it's common. A lot of people do it. As long as you're announcing. What I you know, a lot of times I'll hear pilots do that. And the ones that I prefer are the ones who will say, you know, 6 Tango Whiskey, I'm going to be doing a counterclockwise tour around the back and the front of the island at 2,000 feet, 1 mile offshore. That tells me where he's at. And I know he's going counterclockwise, so I know, you know. It's the guys that go, 6 Tango Whiskey doing a roundabout of the island. Oh, great. That tells me a lot. Are you enjoying the view? You know, so, yeah. But they don't, and that's perfectly acceptable. A lot of people over Avalon, keep your eyes peeled, because there's airplanes going all over, because, you know, there's helicopter traffic now. Helicopters are doing what the airlines used to do, and they're flying people to Avalon. So there's a lot of helicopter traffic down low near Avalon. There's sightseeing airplanes near Avalon, and almost all of them are under 2,500 feet. So keep your eyes peeled around Avalon. Yeah? No, runway 4 remains pretty much the same, other than if the wind is offshore flow, you've got a Santa Ana condition or any kind of, you know, flow of wind from the north, the downdraft on 4 can be worse than the one on 2-2 because it's a steeper cliff and it's deeper down. But other than that, no. And then of course you realize that when you land, you're going to land uphill just for a short time and then continue down. So just be prepared. You may have a longer landing as you're pointing downhill after the crest. That's the one that gets pilots in trouble because on 4, the crest is really short. And so if you're low, you think, oh my gosh, that's the end of the runway. And it looks like, you know, you've got a 400-foot runway. Just slam on the bridge. Yeah.
I had someone tell me that when they come in on 2-2, they scratch the foot and the numbers and like maybe 20% down there. That way they're a little higher than normal.
Yeah, higher than normal.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
I mean, what I do is I just come in, you know, I mean, visually. I visually come in a little bit high, you know, 15 feet, 20 feet higher than normal if there's winds. You know, you kind of have to feel it at Catalina as you're thinking. You know, it's really a feel approach. It's not a by the numbers. It's very much a feel approach. If you can feel the sink starting. Just be ready, you know. So I like to think of it as dipping my toes. As you get lower and lower, kind of see what the wind's doing, and then adjust your power accordingly. And keep those numbers, you know, watching the numbers and making sure that you're not getting pushed down by the downdrafts. Because you don't even notice it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea as far as if you change your aim point.
Yeah.
But it depends on whether you have a lot of experience. If you do, then you know where you are relative to a normal approach.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if not,
then,
moving
yeah,
your aim point
move
is
your aim point
probably a
forward.
good way to go.
And hopefully with the new paving, they're going to do all new striping too. And that'll help. Yeah.
What are the hours of operation?
Okay, so during the winter, which is up to April, they close at 5:30. And then during the summer months, which is after April, I think for them it's after April 21st, it's 7 p.m.
What's if you take off at 5:45, is that an FAA infraction?
No.
No, it's
You just have to get, what I do is if I'm going to take off that late, I'll let Justin know in the tower before I walk out to the airplane. And I'll say, hey, look, it's after 5:30. Do you mind if I go? And it's really more of a staffing thing or whatever. It's not necessarily, because remember, it's a private airport. If that were a county airport or something, it'd be different, but it's a private airport. You're getting permission to land and take off from a private source. They're not air traffic controllers. So really, you're on your own. So what I do is I let them know. I just tell them, hey, it's 5:45, do you mind if I go? And if they're gone, then I won't take off. But then you got to take the shuttle back to town.
If there is a shuttle.
Yeah, if there is a shuttle. That's why, when people go, if they're going to go for the day, I just tell them, you know what, just be back before 5. And that way you don't have any problems.
And being that it's from the airport, as Mark mentioned, there's a $25 landing fee. And most people know that when you check out the flight there. But one time somebody forgot to pay. And I happened to be the one going there next to the same airport. And they said, you don't land. And it turned out because that person before me didn't pay, and they took you too seriously. I ended up taking care of it. But just make sure you go up to the office this time. They're really nice.
Super nice.
Okay. Oh, and if you're...
I thought you just told him Jordan said he would cover this landing.
Put it on Jordy's tab.
Oh, you get a free cookie too.
No, good point. Yeah, Air Club members get a free the Catalina cookies or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. With the meal. With
The landing fee also when you land, if you go up and pay the landing fee, they can do. I mean, it's a small airport, so a lot of times he can do special things for you. If you need a shuttle, if it's quiet and the shuttle isn't scheduled for another 2 hours, they'll actually call it up for you and bring it up to the airport. So they can do other stuff. The food's good there. It's kind of overpriced, but it's good. They bring everything into the island by air. The DC-3 from Catalina flying boats goes in twice a day still. It's one of the last commercial DC-3 routes left in the U.S. Anything else? All right, well, I appreciate you, and good luck with that.
Guys, I don't want to ask for money, but I'm going to ask for money.